Hey, do you teach yoga? Have you ever trained to lead yoga classes, to be a yoga therapist? Have you ever owned a yoga studio? Maybe even just wondered what it was like for the women and men up there in front of the room on their mats, leading you through endless Surya Namaskars, down dogs, and pranayamas galore? Well, these are their stories, and mine. I'm Rebecca Sebastian, a 20-year yoga teacher, 10-year yoga therapist, yoga studio owner, and co-founder of a yoga-focused nonprofit. I've done a lot in the yoga world over the last 20 years. Pretty much everything except had a water cooler. You know, a place to share stories, talk about struggles, successes, and find other people who do the same thing that I do. Welcome to Working in Yoga, a podcast and substitute water cooler for yoga folks to connect and build community, to share our unique profession, our challenges, and our journeys with the world.
Hey friends, welcome to Working in Yoga. This week is the final week of my interviews on tech and AI, and it is a heck of a good conversation. Ram Bhakt is on the podcast, and he has some super interesting things to say about the integration of tech in the yoga space. One of the purposes that I really wanted to highlight during this series is how we could integrate tech into our businesses so that we aren't afraid to use it when it can help us. This conversation highlights that aspect of this overall conversation, and I hope you find it as interesting and informative as I do. Before Ram and I get into it, though, will you please go ahead and like, follow, or subscribe to the podcast from wherever you're listening? This is, of course, a direct nod to the algorithm, and when you do this, it shows the podcast to other people like you. In real-world terms, that helps us all get into community together. And when you listen to this conversation with Ram, would you keep something in mind? It's something that is honestly so deeply in my brain right now that I cannot think about almost anything else. How are we, as an industry, and remember, I separate yoga industry discussion from yoga the spiritual practice discussion. It makes it more clear when we're all talking together. Anywho, I want to know how you think we, as an industry, are going to continue to be relevant as millennials get older and young Gen Xers age out of the practice. Because let's be real, that is going to happen. A good chunk of our practitioners, and teachers for that matter, are millennials, and we need to prepare for the experience of them leaving the industry and maybe the practice over time. How do we become relevant to a new generation of practitioners? Well, tech is one way. So as much as you might have an internal pushback about this idea, it really is worth exploring why. So with that in mind, here is my chat with Ram Bhakt.
Hey friends, welcome to Working in Yoga. Okay, so this week on the podcast, we're still talking about tech and AI, which is my new favorite subject. Don't forget to download the discussion guide that goes along with this series in the podcast show notes. And I am introducing you to my new friend, Ram Bhakt. Ram, will you tell everybody who you are and what you do?
Hi, Rebecca. Yes, so my name is Ram Bhakt. I'm a yoga teacher. You know, I started teaching yoga in 2007, and I started to work in doing teacher trainings ultimately. And then when the pandemic hit, I decided to kind of pivot and lean more into marketing, because that's the thing that I learned a lot while I was running my yoga school. You know, I was running ads and looking at my competition and this and that. So I lean more into the business side. And since then, I have started working on a startup called My Yoga Network. And I started to think about how yoga therapists need help with their marketing. And since I had some success and, you know, an interest in technology as well as design and the website kind of building, I started learning how to use freelancers to help me grow my business. I thought maybe I should sort of go into this market and help yoga therapists. Now, I'm not a yoga therapist myself, I'm just a yoga teacher, but I knew that there'd be a need for yoga therapists growing their businesses. So I started working on myyoganetwork.com, and I wanted to build this marketplace to connect yoga therapists with physicians and with clinics and schools, even hotels, anything that could help them, get work. And I started to get jobs with hotels. So a lot of the early work that I've been doing is with yoga and hotels, but then I have been branching out into yoga in schools, and we're doing a new program with yoga for kids at this yoga studio. And I have started to talk to people about doing more of the clinical work. So I'm just in the early stages of building the outreach strategy for physicians. And we have like people who make phone calls, we have cold emailing, ads and things like that. So essentially, I'm working to build kind of a one-stop shop, like an agency or something, where a place where yoga teachers can get help with growing their business and learning how to use AI, to some extent, to help them with getting help with their work, to help them make their dreams come true.
I'm excited to talk about the AI question with you based on your introduction, which was amazing, because like I'm excited to talk to people who enthusiastically embrace AI, right? So, yoga folks, I love us, but we tend to not embrace tech the way that other professions can or do. We tend to often think that tech is at odds with how we connect with people. So, like, tell me what you're using and why you love it. Like, what are your favorite things about tech and AI?
Well, basically the whole idea of marketing and business and using technology and making money, we have to get out of the idea of, we don't live in a society where people will give us donations to teach them yoga, or that the Maharaja of Mysore is sponsoring my life to be a spiritual, giver and a renunciate who doesn't touch any technology, right? So if we have decided to, whether you believe we decided or not, but since we're incarnated in a capitalistic society and maybe we're householders or we have a need to make money, we should embrace the technology that's around and necessary to help us make a living doing what we want to do. So we need to have websites. You can't just walk around and really just use only word of mouth or pass around a business card, right? You need to get a good picture of yourself and put yourself on a social media page, right? Or you need to send some emails. So that's all technology that I think everyone has slowly started to catch up on. People are building mailing lists and, trying to, send messages to more than one person at a time. So that's the technology of 5, 10 years ago. But in the last 3, 4 years, right, this AI technology has come. And I don't want to lose track of your main question, but the thing is that when you start to learn more of the different parts of growing your business, like marketing, design, copywriting, research, strategy, writing documents, reading contracts, writing contracts. Uh, these are the types of things that usually, if you're somebody who is more artistic or let's say, right-brained, um, you may have difficulty with. And because I started in this kind of freelancer world, early on in my business journey, I had to pay a lot for for people to help me do these things. And if you've ever been on that side of like trying to grow your business and saying, well, I'm not the best salesperson, or I'm not the best person to write this email or this, this ad or something like that, the big boom that's happened, especially for creators and for business people, is now we can use AI to do some of these creative and also, technical things with AI. So the marketing end, the designing of images, the writing your emails, like I said, all those things, the research, right? You can actually save a lot of manpower and money if you're paying someone to help you grow your business. And you can sort of really train an AI or use an AI that exists to help you streamline and make your work easier. So, did I answer your question or?
It though, right? Like AI can make our work easier, and a lot of us don't get paid enough to have an entire team behind us, right? Like I shouldn't use marketing as an example because I actually really love marketing. It's one of my favorite things about my business, but it is not a lot of people's favorite thing. Like to pay, a team of people to come up and like fact check or like check your marketing messaging. Or like you said, if I'm trying to send an email, this is what I used AI for just the other day. I want to pitch corporations in my area to sponsor their employees to come do yoga at my studio. And I was like, hey, I want you to do the research for me. What corporations would be a good match? I want you to give me a sample of what that letter might sound like. Now I'm going to rewrite the letter so it sounds like me. But AI did all my research for me and gave me email contacts. That's amazing.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm kind of an academic person, so when I decided to go start business, I learned what are the tools of business. So, there is this thing called ideal customer research. There's this
Yeah.
thing called, search engine optimization. There's this thing about product market fit or product market research or competitor research. So, and actually at a certain stage during the pandemic, especially, I got into this website called ripen.com, and they do college internships. They're like, it was remote. So like there would be these students who were third, fourth, year business students, and they would work on my company. I would tell them, this is what I do. And then they would go and create an entire strategy booklet on like Instagram, or this is how these are the companies you should target. Here's some ads that we kind of created for you. So that's sort of like really researching what is going to be the intention of your business. Who do you want to serve? How do you want to serve them? How are you going to message? How are you going to message with these people? It requires some mental work, it requires a little bit of research and some planning. And yeah, so it used to be teams like these college students or people that you pay a marketing person to do, but now you can really just ask, the AI to do it all for you.
Like, are you cheap chat GPT? What do you love?
I do love ChatGPT. I like
Same.
ChatGPT because it has the best user interface for keeping track of my previous conversations and for its internal kind of memory upgrading. So when you kind of talk to it, it starts to learn about you more and more. So even if you send it like a basic document, it'll say, oh, are you trying to do all these things regard to this document? And then it will also say, well, do you want me to create this and this and this for you? Because the founder of ChatGPT, Sam Altman, he was with Y Combinator, which is like a business development incubator accelerator. So if you're a business person, it's OpenAI, I believe, is the one to go with. But people use different platforms like Claude. I mean, this is all right now, right? As of today, there's people will say that maybe Claude does better coding, or maybe Google does better coding, and so they have these different ways that they measure the platforms. I think that the Google version, there's a free version of the Google that you can access, and I think even ChatGPT has a free version. But paying $20 a month for some of these tools is really nothing compared to how much you would, otherwise spend in your time or your money.
See that? What do you think are the drawbacks or the things that you see it impacting our industry perhaps negatively in the next 10 years? Because let's be real, we're all going to change how we work in the next 10 years. So we might as well try and forecast a little bit about how that impacts us going forward.
Well, the way that it's going to impact everyone is that those people who are using AI are going to pass you by, so
Yeah.
that's
Yes.
the first thing to remember. um so
Good
you
answer.
need to, it's just like saying, back in the day, oh, I only use word of mouth and I use my business card. Well, everyone else has a website and a social media account, has passed you by,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
now the main thing to think about is, are there, I mean, in the context of yoga teachers, is there a yoga teacher around me who has already targeted all the businesses that are looking for a yoga teacher right now? Have they found them? Because they use AI as opposed to me going door to door or calling them one at a time. Maybe in the future there'll be AI robots that call every business that you want to connect with. So you just go in there, you say, "Hey, I teach trauma-informed yoga. Find me all the psychologists that might want to partner with me." And this bot is going to call all of them, set appointments for you, prepare you for the call, message them on LinkedIn. So these are the one side of this is that you're going to be behind on finding clients. Okay. I guess some of the things that may impact, some of the negative things that may happen. See, the thing is, I think yoga is always going to be a personal thing and it's a human connection. And it's not something that will be outsourced by a robot. Okay. Like, I think the human part of our business and our industry is that people want to speak to a live flesh human that has emotions and can, kind of read all the facial cues and our voice and our energy, right? So people, I think, are afraid that there'll be AI yoga teachers, or there's going to be an AI counselor that I'll just like talk to this AI thing and it will handle everything. But I think that's at least 20 years or never going to happen, right? Because we always want to like talk to each other. We're humans. That's what makes us, that's what really connects us evolutionarily with the healing energy, is to be connected not through wires and electrons, right? That's how we get our healing source, is from nature and through human connection. If AI does start to, gather a lot of information about everyone, like let's say, I mean, one thing I'm thinking about doing that I worked with some college students was about wearables, right? Like, can we do something where, because I wanted
Yeah.
to figure out a way to connect with um, the researchers, right? The research people are actually doing yoga research. There's yoga therapy research going on. You can contact them. So they're a great person to connect with. Hey, you just ran a study at, UCLA. You have 50 people that you did a yoga study with. Why don't you tell them that I'm a yoga teacher? If they want to follow through, I'm here. Or why don't we do something with wearables and yoga? And there might be a way to like, create a relationship there, right? Or have an advocate, because I have an in with them. I'm interested in research. I want to do something with yoga. That's a great thing for all of us clinical yoga people. um, so I don't know, maybe people are afraid that if everyone has my biomarkers, then there's an issue with privacy. They're afraid that uh, some system somewhere is going to know so much about you that if it gets hacked, then I don't know, they'll make some bio warfare. I'm not exactly sure what we're afraid of with information on the internet, or otherwise. So privacy can be a thing. Some people might be worried that if people do make an AI therapist, would the AI therapist have a bias to it, or, maybe teach more Iyengar than Desikachar? I don't know. Uh, so there are
Tell you,
issues. I'm
I
sorry.
just want to tell you right now, the thing I'm going to talk about from this podcast is that wearables idea. That's so freaking brilliant. Like, what a good idea. Like, so good. I just
Yeah,
need
actually,
everyone to hear me because so good.
yeah. We have an article on our website in the resources section about yoga and wearables. And there was also research by the college students. And in fact, it's getting more traffic than many other of the articles that are on the website. People are just wondering, does the Apple phone work with yoga and things like that? But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I think the wearables dimension is a way that we could really start to show the efficacy of yoga, and to ultimately one day like really explore the mechanisms of yoga. Like, okay, they've said that alternate nostril breathing or breathing through this nose actually does this and that to your blood pressure, or they say that meditation does this to your heart rate or your sleep, or they say that doing an inversion can have this and that effect on your heart. Well, what if we just create a network and we say, hey guys, like these 1,000 people that are on my mailing list or on my app, hey, how many of you guys, or on our community? We actually have a community we're starting too. It's on myyoganetwork.org. So we have a community page. And so, what if we get enough people who want to opt in and share their Aura Ring data, and then share their sequence? Or let's say we all just do a sequence for a week. And we say, hey, this is the
Yeah.
sequence we did. This week we tried the integral yoga sequence. This week we tried the Patabi Joy sequence, and then see what's the effect. That's the kind of research that, because we need to do it ourselves, right? Like, the thing with the yoga industry, I feel like we just don't have enough publicity for the yoga therapy, and like really getting people into practicing yoga on their own, but like feeling like it's a thing that they can really, know that it works and really apply it to their condition or what they need. So, in the West, just this, people really love those double blind studies, and it's never going to happen. We're not going to get enough, these double blind studies to like prove that, how big was your size? What did you do it in multiple hemispheres? Like, no, the medical profession is not going to like really get behind this anytime soon, because, oh, okay, do yoga instead of pay for this pharmaceutical for the rest of your life. Like, no, who's going to want to like push that narrative, right? So
Yeah.
yoga therapists themselves and groups that are interested in really participating in studies, even outside of academia, so that they can say, hey, I actually did my own study. My sleep got really better because I did yoga 3 days a week. That's the kind of things that I think that we need to really start to create our own buzz around the business. I always thought one day, Tom Cruise was going to get a yoga therapist, and that's it. That's how this whole thing was going to start. He was going to, he was going to talk about it, but it just hasn't happened yet.
And so Madonna brought yoga to like the public sphere, right? Like we need that for yoga therapy. But yeah, you're right, it's never gonna happen. Like that's which is fine. We just have to find other ways to get jobs, which I'm so like I need to be very sincere that your idea about wearables and research is gonna keep me up at night. It's so really, really good. Okay,
Sure,
so
yeah, we can follow up if you like in the future.
tell
We can talk about
me
it.
how, yeah, like, okay, so tell me how else you foresee like tech really improving our lives because like that alone is just amazing. Like, what do you see it being just like knocking us out of the park?
Well, the thing is that AI can really process a lot of information, and it can really give you personalized mm, feedback. So, we are training our own AI, where I can, for example, put articles by one of my favorite researchers, Dr. Ananda Bhavani, right? He does yoga therapy
Yeah.
research. So I can find his articles. I can upload him into ChatGPT or any other, language model. Then I can take David Coultier's book, like the Anatomy of Hatha Yoga book, which I never got the chance to
Yeah.
actually sit and read through the whole thing, you know. And I can
True.
really ask
Yeah, I have.
specific, I can ask specific things. I can say, okay, like, what is it about this back pain that I might have? And what is the scientific reason? I can add anything in there, maybe some nutritional coach that I wrote a book that I want to like add in there. Another thing is Alex Hormozy. He's like this marketing guy. I throw this Alex Hormozy thing in there. I say, okay, look, now you're my yoga therapy, yoga anatomy, nutrition, and marketing guru. Okay. I'm a yoga teacher. I live in Georgia. I want to teach yoga to seniors. What should I do in order to, write the correct, pamphlet to send to, sorry, to send to a medical professional? What is a lead magnet or a PDF that I can create to give to my students, or to run like a little ad or share with my connections, or create me a poster that I can go hang up in a local senior center that talks about the 5-10 best, not only just benefits, but here's the 10 top research article, printed in the last 5 years, with the best double-blind-ish studies that Harvard has said about, yoga being good for you. So it's like all of this is helping you to fill in any knowledge gaps that you might have. You can really become an expert, or you can have an expert right next to you. You can wake up one morning and say, hey, this morning I feel like dry mouth, like why did that happen? And it will say, well, it's like 10 things that any medical textbook might say. Did you drink enough water? Did you not get enough salt? So I think that we need to embrace the fact that the AIs and these knowledge sources are trustworthy, and or they're at least something that you can start your research with, right? Before, we used to Google a lot and we'd read someone's article. It's very simple. Now you can just have a conversation with a chatbot about anything you've ever needed to Google before. This is like the downfall of Google, some people say. Go to ChatGPT, ask it the same question, and see what it gives you.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, so when you were talking about using AI to sort of be like that researcher, marketer, your yoga therapist, your anatomy expert, wouldn't it be amazing if there were like organizations or institutions that trained their own AI to work for us and we paid them membership dues in order for them to already have that force? Like, wouldn't that be incredible?
That is incredible. In fact, that's what I'm doing. Yeah, if you go to we just built this
Wait,
about a
yeah,
month ago. Yeah, thanks for that pitch. It's actually, if you go to myyoganetwork.org, you can go in there.
that
It's like a
now.
chat bot. Yeah, check it out. It's a chat bot, and you can already ask it questions. So let's say you don't know anything about no chat GPT, you don't want to do anything, you don't want to pay for anything. Go in there. You can ask one or two questions. After the second question, it says, hey, you need to create an account. So then you can create an account, and it's a free account. You can log in with your Facebook, LinkedIn, or Google, or put in an email account. And then inside there, you can start asking questions. It'll say, tell me about what city you live in, what type of yoga you want to do. And there's also the link to our community that I'm developing. So we can, these Yeah, so I mean, I'm going to be the champion for AI in yoga, and I I'm not really trying to make a AI bot that, takes your job away. I want to just help you get jobs. So we're developing this system, and it's free to use right now. And you're going to be able to get deep research on what your business goals are, or whatever you need. It's kind of like just a segue to get people interested in working with my agency, with us. um, and in the community, we hope to continue the conversation and share more tools or answer more questions. So I have like the .com, myyoganetwork.com, which is the B2B side, and it's for the businesses that we interact with. Also, in the myyoganetwork.com, there's a section that says join as a yoga teacher. So you can go in there and fill out your information, whether you want to teach online or in person, what zip code you live in, and then we have you in our database. Like if there's a job that comes up, I know I can sort of grab from that pool of people who have already joined. So this will hopefully be a, the organizations, if you want to talk a little tea, about the problem with organizations, I've seen in your previous podcast, right? Like we've had these organizations that collect the research. I mean, I love IAYT because they started the research branch, the journal. They started to work
Yeah.
on some kind of credentials, or they're trying to get something set up, just like, I guess I like Yoga Alliance because they included a little bit of philosophy. They wanted you to have some more than just the basics of yoga. So IAYT, I think, has done good for establishing um the academic side of the profession. But yeah, people are kind of like not really feeling them as much, because why are we paying these dues if they're not promoting the profession in the world for us to get work? Or this website kind of isn't that user friendly, and I've never gotten a job from this website. um, so yeah, I mean, I wanted to build an organization that actually has the business side as the forefront, because that's
Mm,
really what we need, is to like grow our businesses. So there's a place, I think, for these academic standing and organizations. But really, if you want to make money, you have to kind of spend a little bit of money, or you have to put some time
yeah.
thinking about money, thinking about business, thinking about what tools, I mentioned Alex Hormozy. Just look up this guy, Alex Hormozy. You'll learn a lot about what it takes to really find customers, how you want to give value, and eventually you ask for something, how to get them to, follow you and things like that. So yeah, so yeah, that's, I guess, my overall point is that I was actually talking to one of my students today who has this yoga studio, and we're going to partner with her to bring the kids yoga. And I was telling her, Swami Satchidananda, I lived in Yogaville, and he at one point said that, this is another interesting controversy for you. He said that when yoga people get to the very end, and they want to like decide if they want to be a yogi, they either become yogis or they become business people. You know,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's because it's really like, and I think business is like sort of a bad word for some people, because they think that you know trying to get people's money or charge them more than it costs you to do something is a bad thing. But like, really, business is a way where you take your skills and you offer them to somebody else, and then they give you an exchange for that service that you gave them. So if you really spend a lot of time doing yoga, and it has brought you to this realization of where your own suffering has come from, you've learned the tools that you have used and you want to share them, you've learned how to really empathize with other people, you've learned how to hold space, you've learned how to kind of have a beginner's mind and kind of keep expanding, like every time we sit to meditate, it's like we reset our minds. And that's really like, those are all like CEO skills, to be able to be empathetic to other people's pain, to be able to share from your own experience and what you've learned. So like, and to have a broader reach into the world, these are all what sales and marketing really help help create. Those are the we use sales and marketing to make this happen. So I think that being a renunciate yogi, and only working for God and being selfless is an amazing path. um, but also stepping down and saying, look, I feel like I want to have a nice car and live in a decent house and, pay for my own health insurance, and I live in this world right now. Okay, I spent a lot of time doing sadhana, but like, let me take that same focus, that same patience, that same kind of like broad thinking, and apply it really. Just spend 2 solid months learning what it's going to take to be good at business. What are all these other people doing who are making money as a yoga professional? How can I really absorb that? And maybe it takes, paying for a course. Maybe it takes going to a seminar or a workshop. Maybe it takes paying an agency or joining a community where you can have these conversations, or setting up a call with like a business mentor, or finding some of these websites where like college students will do market research for you, or learning how to just do this with ChatGPT or any AI, you know?
Love the turn that this conversation has gone, because I actually thought for a very long time that the process of being good at business and the process of yoga are very similar. They're both very self-actualizing. And sometimes I like worry about us who are in both spaces, because like you can never escape self-actualization if yoga is your practice and your business. You're just evolving all the time. And sometimes I just want to like eat cake.
You know,
All social
I
media.
I spent I think 3 years doing nothing but sadhana, going back to India, coming back to America, doing teacher trainings, and I was going to go study Ayurveda and just learn Sanskrit and do it all. But I heard that my father was losing sleep over my lifestyle, and he was worried about my future. So I was like, okay, you know what? I'll come back home and I will show you that I can make a living, doing yoga. I see other people, they have workshops, they do retreats, they teach, they do teacher training. So I'm going to do that, and I just started to be fed, also with the success that I was doing in business. I was helping people, I was helping more people, and I was able to pay my own rent, and I was able to, start to learn more about how business works. And this became its own empowerment and its own language. So, you can still be, I don't think there's any people out here who are just teaching yoga these days and not learning a little bit of business. Anyone, you meet these people who run institutes, and they'll talk about meditation for days, but it's not like they're meditating all day. They're managing a team of of people. They got payroll, they have insurance, they have, they're paying for their website. So that this is the type of thing we need to embrace. So if you can do yoga, if you love yoga and sewing, or yoga and basketball, just add one more thing: I love yoga, basketball, and business. And make that a part of your reality. Yoga as an individual in the world, if you're going to make money, that equals entrepreneur, right? So you need to figure out how to set up your own business as any other business person does, and understand what that path of being an entrepreneur is. And you can't hate on people that have done it well. Oh, yoga with Adriene, oh my God, like, she has all these videos and millions of people just watch yoga with Adriene. Well, she didn't even go to yoga therapy school. I know so much more than her. Or she's just doing it because she looks pretty and her camera's really good. I'm never going to pay for an expensive camera to teach yoga. That's ridiculous. Right? Then you're going to always be behind, you know and people who talk about, you know modernizing yoga to some extent, and just kind of making it accessible and digestible, and something that the average person will want to pay for. This isn't something that I feel like we should worry about as diminishing the perfection that is yoga, or that your guru will be mad at you, because you taught yoga, and then it happened to be at a bar. Who cares? And they went and drank alcohol afterwards. Like, you didn't have to say everybody go drink, or that no one can drink and do alcohol at the same time. There's goats, people doing yoga with goats. So what? Like, I used to really get angry at all these people because I was one of these sticklers, and I thought that yoga had to be, and it had to be perfect. And because I was really interested in the tradition, I wanted to keep it pure. I wanted to imagine that, I was one day going to become like some of these yogis who were gurus. But man, all these yogis who were gurus, they got to that stage because they knew how to manage people and to make a little living for somebody around them. That's how they subsisted. So yeah, I think we have to kind of put the academics aside. I mean, I wrote a book on the Yoga Sutras. It's called A Seeker's Guide to the Yoga Sutras. And this book is it's a book that everyone can understand. It's practical. It's one of those things where you can flip to any page and you can read it. I skipped a couple of sutras even. Me of 5-10 years ago would have said this is an abomination to the Yoga Sutras. But this is not the world that we're living in anymore. And we need to give everybody some access and not think that yoga has any clout of kind of like, we don't want to over intellectualize it and keep ourselves out of the marketplace and other people's lives.
Just gotta, everybody, Ram, you're gonna tell everybody your website again and how to get a hold of you so that we can all follow you, because I am obsessed now. Say the things we need to say. All of that needs to be heard. So tell people how to find you.
Yeah, go to myyoganetwork.org. And you can find me on Instagram at My Yoga Network also, or you can look up my yoga school. I'm kind of more in that one at Long Beach School of Yoga, LB Soy on Instagram, or longbeachschoolofyoga.com. You'll see a little bit more about my bio, and my LinkedIn and things like that are inside of there.
So much for having this conversation. It was so good.
Yeah. I have lots of opinions about other things too. I hope maybe we can reconnect again sometime. I'm kind of jealous that you had 2 calls with Jivana, but maybe one day we'll talk again.
Thank you so much for this conversation, Ram. Here are our key takeaways. First, AI can undoubtedly help us with our businesses. Ram listed a whole lot of things that AI can help us with: marketing, emails, scheduling, and more. Which ones do you feel confident implementing sooner rather than later? Next, colleagues that are using AI are going to pass you by, and this is undeniably true. If you consider our market saturated and competitive now, you might want to consider exploring how AI can help you stand out in your business. Next, while AI yoga teachers are not prevalent now, they absolutely do exist. If you didn't catch that article from NPR on nursing home facilities using AI yoga teachers in Colorado, I will link that in the show notes. And what I want you to think about is how you'll offer something different than those AI yoga teachers. Next, wearable AI in yoga is such a good idea. Is anyone doing this already? Dr. Steffany Moonaz, I'm looking at you. Could we get Oura rings for everyone to measure biomarkers as they practice yoga from anywhere in the world? That could potentially have a huge impact on our research wing of the industry. Next, our orgs could help us with some of this, especially in the tech realm. They could be building us chatbots so that they can help folks who are looking for resources about yoga. Now, I am giving a solid side eye to you, International Association of Yoga Therapists. But let's be honest, the org most likely to give us this is the American Yoga Council, the new kid on the block. So if you're listening, we want you to build us chatbots that help practitioners find their way to teachers, yoga therapists, and more. DM me, Andrew and Scott. I could go on for a while about this. In fact, maybe I'll do a final wrap-up episode and add more details on this idea. Next, self-actualization in business and yoga is something we need to talk about. because we need to be careful as sincere yoga practitioners and business owners. The improvement of both of these requires a path of self-actualization. I feel like I've made this joke on the podcast, but I have most certainly have said it in talks when I'm out speaking and in person. When you run a yoga business, it feels like you can't escape self-improvement. And sometimes I just want to eat chips and scroll TikTok. So it is worth building up some practices to give yourself a break. Yoga folks, as I have experienced them, are often intense people like myself, and we need to make sure that we are balancing out this dual journey of self-discovery with some hobbies. Side note, yoga is not your hobby, babe. And relaxation. And finally, Ron made some comments on the over-intellectualization of yoga and those folks who are deep sticklers for traditional yoga. And I want to mention that I have been, at one time, both of those things. For me personally, some of that came from a place of feeling like I had learned all I needed to learn from yoga, which is a sure sign that I hadn't learned nearly enough, and the fact that, frankly, it feels good to think we are morally superior to other people. That's a trap in thinking that I see a lot in the West. And if you want to think your way out of it, then go ahead and wrestle with the idea that you and I have the same job as anyone who teaches hot booty goat yoga with wine chasers. Because I'm going to gently hold your hand and remind you that we do all have the same job. Okay, I love you. Thank you so much for this conversation, Ram. I am truly grateful. Next week, as I decided halfway through writing these show notes, I'm going to do a final wrap-up episode on AI, and then we're going to dive into the continued conversation series, where I continue discussions that I've already started on things like perfectionism and teacher training and licensure and more. Until then, I am always and forever grateful that you have chosen to spend your time and energy with me. Now, let's go get to work, and I'll catch you around the water cooler next time.